Well, they finally did it. They finally gave us information about the Discovery class and confirmed it, except we really don't know much more than we did before this. It's really strange because we've been pleading for information, confirmation that Royal Caribbean will be building its Discovery class ships. And they did that, but that's all they did. There was little to nothing else that came out of the announcement, and yet it's still something. I mean, here's the reality of what we learned about the Discovery class. It'll be at least 2 ships to start with, 4 more possibly to follow, and let's face it, unless it's an absolute disaster, Royal Caribbean always, or there's a pandemic, Royal Caribbean always exercises their options for these cruise ships. So in the meantime, anyway, we're going to get the first ship in 2029 and the second ship in 2032. What I really found interesting was a couple things. First of all, we got nothing else about it, which is, maybe I'm reading too much into it, because we didn't get any information about the nature of these ships. From the get-go, the rumor mill has always been that the Discovery class ships would be smaller, and I'm using air quotes for that because that's a relative term, I think, but they kind of like, hence the name, like this was like why they called it this. It was going to go in this kind of direction, and Royal didn't give us any other information about it. I mean, it really was very, very quiet. And if you read through the press release or our blog post at realcaribbeanblog.com that has a lot less marketing jargon in it, there's not a whole lot of other information. They're building it in France at the Chantiers de l'Antique shipyard, which is where some of the Oasis class ships were built, and Sovereign class ships and a couple others. The first one will come out in 2029, second in 2032. That in itself is kind of interesting. 2029 to 2032 is a pretty large gap. Think about the Icon class. We've had Icon in 24, Star in 25, Legend in 26, Icon 4 in 27. Like they're pretty close in. You've got a 3-year gap between the two. That's really interesting. I have a theory on that in a moment, but I want to get to what Michael Bailey said later on during the earnings call. This is probably the most interesting thing about the announcement, because look, we all knew the Discovery class was happening. That's not news to anybody who's been following, this program. In fact, here on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, we did a whole episode about it. I think I've done like 2 or 3 episodes about what we know about the Discovery class. So its existence isn't so much a surprise. But Michael Bailey, during the earnings call to Wall Street analysts, got a question about it. And I love this question. I was so excited for it because one of the Wall Street analysts on the earnings call asked them specifically about it, because they said, quote, the industry chatter is that it's going to be much smaller than the Icon, Oasis, and a lot of other ships you've done. And they wanted to know information about it. And I swear Michael Bailey was about to spill the beans on it, and then he got like zapped with a dog collar, or someone hit him over the head, or I don't know what. But I'm going to play the audio for you right now, because I can't do this justice trying to recount it for you. I mean, it definitely sounds like somebody who is about to say something, and then, no, I'm not going to say it.
Hi, Robin. It's Michael. I'll talk a little bit about Discovery. Actually, I'm really not going to talk about Discovery.
I mean, maybe I'm reading more into that, statement, quote, whatever you want to call it, before than I really should be doing. But what's interesting is he went on to kind of basically just, reiterate things we've already heard and read about during the announcement. But the one thing he said at the very end of that was interesting, because at the end, he said that many of the assumptions that are currently out there in social media in terms of size, capacity, etc., probably, it's fair to say, inaccurate. And that's a really bold statement. I think now, of course, what does he mean? Was he referring to? I'm not sure. I mean, there are a lot of assumptions out there. I've read plenty of them myself, where people think that it's going to be a replacement for the Vision class, or it's going to be based in Baltimore or Tampa. I think none of those things are accurate or true. But I am curious about, to what extent. What really interests me about the Discovery class is the lack of any kind of reveal. And Michael Bailey's comments here about the size, capacity, etc., are probably inaccurate. Am I crazy? Do I have too much tinfoil in my head? But is Royal Caribbean maybe rethinking this? Are they now considering making it bigger? I mean, maybe, I whether or not it's going to be the biggest cruise ship in the world, I don't know. But is that a possibility? And why do I say that? Well, there's not a lot of information here to start with. And if you're going to go with hey, this is it's not expedition by any means. I think this is, I've always said, I think it's going to be about 4,000 passengers, whatever. It's just relatively speaking smaller than an Icon class, which, by the way, Michael Bailey has said on record, at least publicly, that it would be smaller than Icon class. But have those things changed? Is this where Royal's rethinking things? Admittedly, I think this is probably crazy talk, but for what it's worth, it seems like maybe that could be it. I mean, the complete lack of information, and this is actually pretty typical of Royal New Class. We are 3 years away from its debut. They're not going to put a lot of marketing information. We don't even have a name for Icon 4, and it comes out next year. So, I think we need to keep things in perspective. Also, I really don't think we're going to get much information about Discovery Class until, I'm going to guess, 2028. I mean, if you remember when Royal put out designs for Icon, it was in October the year before it debuted. I mean, it really came up pretty darn close, and Royal likes to be able to change their mind and do things. I think they want to maintain a competitive advantage. So for all those reasons, as we sit here in 2026, happy that we have this announcement. There's not much else behind it. The other thing was I want to bring back something else we talked about earlier, which was that 2029 for the first ship, 2032 for the second ship. And that's also fairly interesting. The thing about that is that it's a large gap. And the only thing I can think of, why would they have such a large gap, is they have plans for another ship to come out before that. You're talking about the years 2030 and 2031. We did talk about in our previous podcast episode here about the fact that Royal does have, they've already confirmed, they're working on a new next-gen cruise ship plan to be built in Finland over at Turku, where the Icon class ships are being built. And at the time when they made that announcement last year, we assumed that was the Discovery class we're alluding to. But since the Discovery class is being built in France, that means there has to be a different ship class of some kind over in Finland. Perhaps, and this again, another jump of logic here, perhaps they're going to be launching those ships in 2030 and 2031 and then return to the Discovery in 2032. Could be, or simply just could be, you know what? There's just too many other slots taken up by other lines in those years, and that's why there's a gap between, Discovery 1 and Discovery 2. Also interesting, they haven't trademarked yet Discovery of the Seas. I'm sure that's a mere formality, but it is worth noting that of all the names they've ever registered, Discovery of the Seas hasn't been one of them, but Royal Caribbean, when they register or trademark ship names, they always do it in bunches to help confuse everybody. They'll register like 6 or 7 at a time. Sorry, 6, 7, couldn't resist. And then one of which is actually correct. The rest are just, distraction. But it's just kind of one of those things where I think you probably learn like me, read through the announcement, watch our YouTube video here on our channel, and we're like, great, we know exactly the same amount we knew before. The only difference now is that they can publicly talk about it. So with all of this in mind, knowing nothing else beyond what any of you all know about this, I'll make my bold predictions here in 2026 so that at some point in 2029, somebody can email me and say, Matt, 3 years ago you made predictions. Here's what you said. And I'll say, those are a bold-faced lie. I never said those things. I still think it's going to be 4,000 passengers. There's no way, mark my words, in 2029, there is no way they're building a cruise ship smaller than 4,000 passengers at double occupancy. I don't see it. I think it's an impossibility from a financial standpoint because remember, cruise ships, especially Royal Caribbean International brand ones that are mass market, rely so much on the economy of scale. They make more money with a 4,000 passenger vessel than a 3,000, and they'll make more money with a 5,000 than a 4,000, etc. The more people they put on the ship, the more profitable it is, which is why Royal Caribbean has edged towards bigger and bigger ships. I mean, there is a little bit of the bragging factor to it, but I think it's really about money. It's just that the bigger the ship, the more money it can generate, the more revenue it can generate because there's more people who are buying drink packages and shore excursions and all that stuff. This is Royal Caribbean's motto. If you want smaller ships, 3,000 and less, you're going to Celebrity or Silver Sea. So I think 4,000 for sure. The first ship in the class, Discovery of the Seas, I think we can safely say that's probably the name of it. I mean, Royal Caribbean has not used the ship class as its name for the first ships, going back all the way until Vision of the Seas. Vision was actually the last, but back then they really didn't have ship classes like we do today. And I think it's going to be a ship that will debut in the U.S. because it's going to have to, I think, from a marketing standpoint. But I think it's going to debut in the U.S., but then almost immediately jet off to somewhere else. Similar to, there was a ship that did that. I forget now which one it was. I don't know. Maybe it was Odyssey. But something like that where it has like a very short U.S. season to kind of get all the marketing out of the way. And then they'll bring it over to, I don't know, Europe or somewhere else. I mean, I guess the ship could probably the safer bet, now that I think about it, is that it debuts in Europe because, of course, it's already in Europe. It would be built in France. And if you're already there, why do a transatlantic to bring it back? But it also depends on timing, right? Because if it's done in November, they have no choice but to bring it to the U.S. But, they're talking about, I gotta go back to the press release. Michael Bailey said, all while visiting truly breathtaking destinations around the world, as he described what this Discovery class is all about. So I think they still have that in mind. But those are my bold predictions. I'm usually wrong, by the way, about bold predictions. So, except for the ship name. I mean, that one you could almost bet money on, I'd imagine. But I'm curious where this will go. The only problem is we've now got to wait 3 years. Well, we really got to wait about 2.5 years for real confirmation, like ship, where it's going to, ship name, where it's going to be, the itineraries, pricing, all those kinds of things out there. All right, friends, I'm going to answer listener emails. The part of the episode where I answer the emails you've sent me. First email is from Bill Schaub. Just wanted to convey how important having some type of travel, flight, medical insurance when traveling internationally on Royal Caribbean. This past year, I made 2 claims, saving me around $18,000. I booked my flights using the Hopper app, which is usually the lowest cost. They offer flight insurance for around $15, which I purchased on my flight back home from a Mediterranean transatlantic on Voyager. If the plane is delayed more than an hour, it's 100% refund. My flight was delayed 1 hour and 3 minutes, so I got a $1,000 refund. Last December, I was on Liberty of the Seas with Tony Diaz and was taken off the ship on the last night by ambulance to Fort Lauderdale Hospital, with severe abdominal pains that the ship doctor could not figure out. Turned out to be a kidney stone, which passed. Never in my wildest dreams had I imagined that I would be the one on a stretcher being wheeled off the ship, and that I've seen many others so many times before. For the first time on this trip, I decided to click the box to purchase the extra $10 of premium medical trip delay insurance. Today, I received the payment of over $17,000 in expenses on the ship and hospital and airline costs. Everybody needs to get insurance. It's worth it. Bill, amen, brother. I am lucky enough to say that I've never had to use it, but situations like this, stories like this are all too common. I mean, kidney stones are not all that uncommon. You never know. The most interesting, first of all, I agree. Everybody should get travel insurance. It's usually fairly inexpensive. There's a lot of places to get it. Royal Caribbean sells its own. That is one option. You can certainly go to a website like travelinsurance.com or insuremytrip.com. You can get competitive quotes, find one that's good for you. But usually it's pretty darn cheap. The one thing I was really interested in buying wasn't actually your travel insurance, but the fact that if you book your flights through the Hopper app and you buy their insurance, which is like $15, you get, and your flight is delayed an hour, you get 100% refund. That seems too good to be true. I mean, a lot of flights are delayed an hour. And like, does that mean your flight's like, if your flight's delayed 90 minutes, let's say, and it still happens, you still go on your flight, do you land to a full refund? That seems bonkers. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, Bill, or anything like that. Just maybe I'm missing something here. The other thing that would be interesting would be, of course, how that works. When it comes to airfare, other than air to sea, I largely prefer to book my flights through the airline because if you want to make changes later on, they're a real pain in the butt if you didn't book directly with the airline. Now, granted, that doesn't say that it's difficult to make the flight change through, Hopper app or Chase or whatever one you use, but I'm always, like, back in the day, I would book everything through, like, Expedia or something like that. Now I would never do that. It seems like a mistake, so I'm curious how that works, but that's a conversation. Or at least, you know what, Bill, you don't have to email me. You just post the comments on our YouTube video here. I'll be happy to respond to them and check that out because it sounds kind of interesting. Next email is coming to us from Kyle Scheffler. Hi, Matt. Watch your channel all the time on YouTube, and I enjoy the wealth of information on the Royal Caribbean line. First, to answer your question, here are some of my upcoming cruises: Radiance of the Seas out of Tampa, 338 days. Oasis of the Seas, 577 days out of Cape Liberty. My wife and I have sailed on both Grandeur and Voyager with our son. We normally sail in suite level rooms. Since this is a once-a-year vacation for us, we try to make the most of it. On Radiance, we have an owner suite, and on Oasis, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, so we booked a 2-bedroom, spacious aqua suite with large balcony StarClass. I have seen most of your videos on both of these ships, and most of these videos on your tips when it comes to StarClass. My question for you is, what do you like and dislike about these ships? Are there certain things I should avoid on either one? Lastly, for someone who's never sailed StarClass before, outside of using the Royal Genie for everything, is there any good advice you can recommend that my wife and I can expect leading up to embarkation day? Also, we've never sailed out of Cape Liberty, and we hear getting to the port can take some time. If so, do you have any good advice? Yeah, let's go backwards because you have the easiest questions first at the end. Cape Liberty can have a traffic backup. It's one way in, one way out, like many ports, but it just seems to always get a little more traffic inundated, Kyle. So you're going to get stuck in traffic as soon as you get into the actual loop that takes you in there. It's normal. It happens. There's nothing you can do about it. I shout, but I mean, nobody listens. So anyway, it's just that, yes, you've heard correct. Not crazy. It's not going to take you like an hour, but it might take an extra like 15 minutes or so. For your second to last question, advice for what you can expect for StarClass outside of using the Royal Genie. Number one, probably the least talked about best benefit of StarClass is you get unlimited laundry. There's a bag in your room for StarClass laundry, not the typical paper bag, but like a real bag. I would do that every single day. My wife doesn't like doing it, but I'm like, we're paying for it. I'm going to get my money's worth because laundry ain't cheap on a cruise ship otherwise, especially a bag full of it. But the fact that you can go every single day and do laundry, I mean, you could underpack and keep reusing clothing, obviously. I wouldn't necessarily do that, but that being said, it would be good for you to come home with clean laundry. That would be kind of a neat thing, and they fold it for you. So that definitely is one piece of advice I'd recommend outside of StarClass. Number two, some might disagree. I think most agree with me. Since you have the unlimited dining package, I don't see a reason to go to Coastal Kitchen, or the main dining room for that matter. I think you really should rely on specialty dining. Take advantage of that. I mean, really milk it for what it's worth. That's a big one. And then also have something delivered to your cabin when you get back in port. So like, let's say you're get back onto the ship from a port day, have a snack waiting for you. Like my favorite are chips and salsa and guacamole. It's a good, like, not too filling. Well, it can be if you eat the whole thing. But this is a good snack to have in there. Satisfying. Fruit is also a good one as well. So, for what do I like and dislike about the ships? Well, Radiance, I think, as you know, is not StarClass unless you're booking one of the new Rented Genie services. But inherently, your owner suite doesn't come with StarClass. What I like about Radiance class in general, they've got a great pub, great layout, small ship, easy to get around. There's a fair amount of restaurants on board. It's got the basics, but they hit home runs, in my opinion. An absolutely stunning schooner bar. What I don't like about the Radiance of the Seas is the casino is tiny and very, very smoky. They have no row promenade. It's a Centrum. I don't hate the Centrum, actually. I prefer a promenade. But the Centrum can get very crowded. I mean, if you want to see a show in the Centrum at all, you got to get there like an hour ahead of time because the chairs that are there are very limited. There are people that like live in those chairs all day. Yeah, it's kind of a thing. Oh, the solarium I love a lot. I think it's the best solarium in the fleet. Quantum class is pretty close, but I think the solarium on the Radiance class ships is beautiful. It's enclosed, climate controlled, fantastic. Oasis class, I mean, I could spend an hour here talking about how much I love the Oasis class. I mean, an Oasis of the Seas, you've got Aqua 80s, you've got an amazing amount of dining, giant ship, plenty to do. I think the Sweet Sun deck is not very good on Oasis, especially compared to Wonder or Utopia. That's neither here nor there because you're not going on there. But so many more great dining options for you to enjoy. So take advantage of your StarClass offerings there. I think it'll be really, really nice. So yeah, enjoy it. You got some nice cruises there, and I like the idea. You don't cruise a lot, but you make the most of it. That's important. Next email is from Connor. Hey, Matt, hope it's all well. Just want to get your thoughts on when do you think bookings for Oasis 7 will open. I always listen to your podcast and watch your videos. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Connor. Boy, take a number because you've got Icon 4 first coming out. They got to announce that. Also, we're going to have not only Oasis 7, but Icon 5 the same year. So when do I think it'll come out? Probably a year out at least. So probably at least another year to go. Because obviously Oasis 4 comes out next year, right? And Oasis 7 is until 2028. So it's going to, it seems like Royal Caribbean with new ships, you're talking about, I mean, just about a year-ish before the ship debuts. You get the information like, what's the name, when you can book it, pricing, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to guess sometime in mid-2027 would be the case for that. Which, of course, is, if you're wondering, hey, when are we going to get Icon 4? I suspect strongly sometime this spring would be my guess on that one. Again, just about a year out, they kind of start to be like, well, we should probably get information. Which, by the way, boggles my mind. I think they hide behind the competitive advantage thing. Like, they don't want the competition to know. The competition, other cruise lines, are so far behind. I mean, MSC does straight up copy them everywhere they can. But, even so, I think they play a little too close to the vest personally, but I'm a cruise fan. I want to hear the information sooner than later, so I kind of get that. Our last email today is coming to us from Guillaume. Hi, Matt. Just watched your video about points choice. Personally, I'm generally happy with the move, but also slightly disappointed that my kids won't earn points on our upcoming celebrity cruise. On Royal Caribbean's website, it does say that points choice is 18 plus only, likely because celebrities program is indeed 18 plus only. I reached out to Royal Caribbean to express my small disappointment, and they did say they'll make a comment, take my comment into consideration. And Guillaume sent me a copy of the terms and conditions, and he said, this is what I'm now reading it again. This is off the website. This may have changed, but anyway, members of Crown and Anchor Society, the Royal Caribbean International Loyalty Program, aged 18 years and older, are eligible to participate in points choice with the Celebrity Cruises Loyalty Program, Captain's Club and Silver Sea Cruises Loyalty Program, Venetian Society, and transfer points earned through through one loyalty program access the programs. Okay, so what's interesting is sounds like it is only 18 months, which would be, I guess, I don't know, that seems like a weird decision. On the one hand, it doesn't matter so much because obviously kids get the status of their parents. But the problem is if your kids have any desire or inkling or chance of ever making Pinnacle, right, those points do matter. And that is very surprising, actually. I think I knew that Celebrity didn't have a program for kids. That was surprisingly, but I did know that. But the fact that Points Choice, which is the new option where if you go on a celebrity cruise, you can bring your points back to Crown and Anchor Society. You can't do that for kids. Again, surprising. I think Royal, maybe Guillaume is right. They're just like, listen, Celebrity doesn't have this program for kids. We're not going to change that. So we'll just make Points Choice 18 plus. That covers our bases. And let's face it, if a 7-year-old is cruising on Celebrity, they're going to get their parents' status anyway. So it's, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And for any status other than, of course, Pinnacle, it doesn't matter because kids aren't going on cruises by themselves. I mean, I suppose grandma could take them on a cruise and without the parent, I guess, but I think that's a pretty edge case scenario. Do I like it? No. I think it's probably, I don't know why you can't just convert it, but probably because the system is configured so that it requires a corresponding Captain's Club number on that side, and that's why they can't do it. It seems like a surmountable technical hurdle, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. Maybe they'll change their mind on that. I certainly would welcome that. Well, there you go. Thank you, Guillaume, for the email, and thank you to everybody for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. Of course, if you have a question you'd like to email me, you can always do so by emailing Matt, M-A-T-T, @RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.